Seventh graders, let's go ahead and get this started. I've got all the odd ones, so let's begin. Solve this inequality. I see h plus 4 is less than 6. I'm going to minus 4 from both sides to isolate that h. I want to get it all by itself. So the only way to do that is to take 4 away from here. That means I take 4 from this side. h comes down, and so does the inequality. And 6 minus 4 is 2, so h is less than 2. When I graph this, I'm going to make a line. I'm going to go ahead and put my number 2 there. And then I'm going to remember that h is less than 2. So since it's less than, it does not equal 2. Put a circle there. And I'm going to shade in the area over here that's going to my left. Number 3 is next. This time I see that n is with 4 over 5. So I'm going to have to subtract 4 over 5 from the side. Whatever I subtract from one side, I subtract from the other. And now I realize that my denominators need to be the same in order to combine them. I'm going to multiply this to 2 over 2. And that's going to give me negative 8. Let's see, this is going to turn to negative 8 over 10. This is all gone now. This is the only thing that remains over here. So I'm going to scratch this out. I got 7 over 10 minus 8 over 10. Well, that's a negative 1 over 10. And then I see that it's going to be less than or equal to n. When I make my graph for this one, I know I'm going to put a negative 1 over 10 over here. And then since this is less than or equal to, I'm going to put a dot here instead of a circle. And since the number is, actually this number is greater than according to this, so that means all the numbers that are bigger than a negative 1 over 10. All right. Next, we're going to go down to number 5. It says, solve the inequality, check your solution. I'm going to work this down here to give me some room. We got v over 5 minus 6 is equal, these are equations, to 3. Okay, we're not dealing with inequalities this time. We're dealing with equations, which means we get one answer. I do not have to graph anything. But this is a two-step equation. So the first thing I have to do is remember I'm doing PEMDAS backwards, and that's going to give me a SAD-MEP. So first I'm going to look for subtraction and addition to do. I'm subtracting 6, so I'm going to use addition to solve it. I'm going to add 6 to get v by itself. This is going to leave me v over 5 is equal to 9. Everyone see the 3 plus 6 is 9. 6 minus 6 is 0, so I don't bring that down. Next, I have to get v by itself. I see that I'm dividing it by 5. The opposite of dividing it by 5 is multiplying it by 5. I'll multiply it in the form of 5 over 1. Whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other. I'm multiplying it by the denominator, and that way my numerator is on top and my denominator is on the bottom. I can go ahead and reduce these. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. That leaves me v over 1, which is v. And now I have 9 times 5, and that's 45. So v equals 45 for number 5. All right, next we're going to go ahead and get number 7 going. Number 7, I have 51 equals m over 4 plus 50. I'll be able to show the work over here. Once again, I'm just going to subtract 50 from both sides. When I do this, I get, well, 51 minus 50 is 1. That's equal to m divided by 4. Once again, I have to get m by itself. Since I'm dividing by 4, I'm going to multiply by 4 to get rid of that division problem. And whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other. I multiplied by 4 because my denominator was 4. So now that I have a numerator of 4, I can reduce 4 divided by 4 is 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1. They're both divisible by 4, so now I have m over 1. Because m times 1 is m, and 1 times 1 is 1. And anything over 1 is itself, so I still get m. Now I take 4 and multiply it to 1, and that's going to give me 4. So for number 7, 4 equals m. All right, let's mosey on down to number 9 now. Number 9 says, writing an inequality. Write an inequality that compares the given numbers. Does the inequality remain true when you multiply each number in the inequality by 2 or by negative 2 and justify your answer? Well, if I was going to write this, it would be negative 2 is going to be less than 5. So if I multiply both sides by 2, this is going to be negative 2 times 2, which will give me negative 4. And this would be 5 times 2, which would be 10. And for this, it stays true because negative 4 is less than 10. So when it says, does the inequality remain true? Yes, for this one it does. Now let's try this next one. The next one is saying, remember we have negative 2. I'm just going to put that over here. Negative 2 is less than 5. This time we're multiplying by negative 2. Well, this time we see that negative 2 times negative 2 is 4, because a negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 2 is 4. And we see that 5 times negative 2 is negative 10, because 5 times 2 is 10, and a positive times a negative is a negative. So does this stay true? Absolutely not. 4 is not less than 10. So this time, no, it does not stay true. All right, let's go to number 11 now, do the same thing. If I have 6, that is definitely bigger than negative 3. But if I multiply 6 by 2, and I multiply negative 3 by 2, I see that I'm going to have 2 times 6, which is 12, and that's definitely greater than negative 3 times 2, which is negative 6. So for this one, yes, it's true. Now let's take the same numbers, 6 is greater than negative 3, and multiply them both by negative 2. Well, this time, negative 2 times 6 will be negative 12, because 2 times 6 is 12, and a negative times a positive is a negative. And will that be correct? If I have a negative times a negative, that equals a positive. 3 times 2 is 6. This does not make sense because negative 12 is not bigger than 6, so this will be no. All right, let's go over here. It says solving the inequality, graph the solution. If I solve this inequality, I realize I'm going to have to go to multiply this side by 9 over 1. And whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other. I do this because my denominator was 9. I was dividing by 9, so I need to multiply by 9 so I can cancel my 9s out and get C all by itself. And now I see I have 9 times negative 4, and 9 times negative 4 will give me negative 36. So C is less than or equal to negative 36. Make sure there's no negative sign over here. No, there wasn't. Good. All right, let's go back over here now to number 15. Oh, wait a minute. It does say graph the solution, doesn't it? Almost forgot that. So let's graph these out. If I graph this out, I'm going to have negative 36 here. I'm going to have a dot because this can be equal to it. And so C is less than this. I'm going to shade in all the numbers that are less than. All right, now let's go to number 15. Number 15 says negative 16 is greater than x divided by 2. Well, the only way to go ahead and undo this is to multiply it by 2. Now I get x by itself. And whatever I do to one side, I do the other. So I'm going to take negative 6 and multiply it by 2. Well, 2 times negative 16 would give me negative 32. So negative 32 is greater than x. I guess I can put my line here again. Put the number I found, which was negative 32. Make it a circle instead of a dot. And then remember, x is less than this number. So I'll put my arrow pointing to the less than. All right, we're going to number 17 now. And I see that 7 is less than 3.5k. Well, only way to get rid of 3.5 being multiplied to k is to divide 3.5 away. And whatever I divide from one side, I'll divide from the other. I'm pretty sure 7 divided by 3.5k is 2. I'm going to use the calculator just to verify what I feel I already know. Now we got 7, and we're dividing it by 3.5. And that does equal 2. So this tells me that 2 is going to be less than k. When I'm going ahead and making a line out of this, I see that this is going to put me at 2. This is going to give me a circle, not a dot, because there's no line under there. And since k is bigger than 2, I'm going to go to all of the numbers that are bigger than 2. All right, let's go on to number 19. To get 4.2 away from y, I'll divide 4.2 away. Whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. Now y is all by itself. The symbol comes down. And I got to figure out what is 12.6 divided by 4.2. I'm pretty sure that's going to be a negative 3, but let's give it a shot. I got 12.6. We're dividing it by 4.2. And that does give me 3. And a negative divided by a positive is a negative. So this would be a negative 3. Okay, well that tells me, when I put my line here, I'll have a negative 3, and y is smaller than or equal, so that's going to be a dot, not a circle. And since it is smaller, I'm going to point to all the numbers going smaller than it. All right, and a great way to remember where the arrow goes is always put your variable first, and then wherever the arrow is pointing to, that's the direction that you put your arrow. All right, 21, you earn $9.20 per hour at your summer job. Write and solve an inequality that represents the number of hours you can work to earn enough money to buy a start phone that cost $299. Well, if I do this, I know I'm earning $9.20 per hour. So I'm going to put H here. And remember, write and solve an inequality represents the number of hours you work to earn enough money to buy a smartphone. The smartphone costs $299, and I need the same or more, right? And I don't need more than that. I just need the same or more. So I'm going to put that this is less than or equal to this, okay? So, does it say inequality? Yes, earning it. Actually, I actually need more, don't I? So yes, I'm actually going to need to turn this symbol around because having less money will not work. I need to have more money than that. Okay. Oops. When I take, well, remember I'm going to have to divide by $9.20 to get h by itself, which means I will divide by $9.20. Okay, and if I do this, let's see, 299 divided by $9.20 gives us 32.5. So 32.5. So what is this telling me? I'm going to need to work 32 hours, 32 and a half hours. So when it says represent the number of hours, 32.5 would be 32 and a half hours, right? Does it say to make a graph? Write and solve an inequality that represents this. It really doesn't tell me to make a graph here, so I should be okay. But I think what I do want to do is verify that I am putting my units down, 32.5 hours. All right, let's go to number, let's see, 22 is yours to do. I got number 23. Solve an inequality. Solve the inequality in graphic. Right back to this again. Huh? Okay, well, I need to get this -5 away from n. And we have to remember the rule about inequalities now. It's the one rule that's different than equations. If I multiply or divide by a negative number, I have to turn my symbol around. So I'm going to divide by -5, which means I would divide by -5 over here. Remember, the minute I divide it by a negative number, I have to turn my symbol in the other direction. The n stays over here, and 15 divided by -5 will be -3. All right, and it says to graph it, so when I make my graph, I'm going to put -3 down here. Since it can be equal to it, I'll put a dot. Since n is bigger than this, I will point to all the numbers bigger than -3. All right, let's go to number 25. This time I see I have -1/3 being multiplied to h. Well, the opposite of that is multiplying -3 over 1. Whatever I multiply to one side, I'll multiply to the other, -3 over 1. And now these cancel out to leave me h, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And 3 times 1 is 3, 1 times 3 is 3, and 3 divided by 3 is 1. Remember, I did multiplied by a negative number here, so that's going to make me turn my inequality symbol in the other direction. 8 times -3 is -24. And now I have to graph. I know I'll put -24 here. Since I have a line underneath my inequality, that means it can equal this, so I'm going to put a dot. And since h is smaller than this, I'm going to point to all the numbers that are smaller than -24. I'm off to number 27 now. 27 says -3y is less than -14. Well, I'm going to divide by -3, which means I divide by -3 over here. When I divide by a negative number, it turns my symbol around. My y is left here because 3 divided by 3 is 1. Negative divided by negative is a positive. Now I got -14 divided by 3. Well, negative divided by negative will be a positive number. Now 14 divided by 3, that's another story. I could write this as a fraction. And if I did, I know 3 goes into 14 4 times, because that's going to be 12. And then there'll be 2 left over, so that would be 2/3. Right? If you wanted to, you could even take 14 and divide it by 3. Right? And that's going to be 4 for 12, and then 2 left over. So that's 4 and 2/3. If I put this as a decimal, it's going to be 4.6 repeating. So I'm pretty sure they want this as a fraction. And now I'll put my line over here. And I'm going to put 4 and 2/3 here. There's no line underneath, so I'm going to put an open circle. So the answer cannot be 4 and 2/3, but since y is bigger than it, it will be all the numbers that are bigger than 4 and 2/3. And many of you are probably wondering, Mr. Meadows, can I leave it as negative 14 over 3, over negative 3? And I'm going to say no. If anything, I might allow 14 over 3. And that's because that negative divided by negative gives me positive 14 over 3. But still, for me, I'd rather you turn it back into a mixed number. All right, let's go ahead and move on to number 29. Over here, I see that I'm dividing by 6, so I'm going to multiply by 6 to get m by itself. The 6's cancel out, leaving me m. It is not a negative number, so I don't move my symbol around. I will multiply this side to 6. Now, 6 times a negative 4.5. Well, I know that's going to give me a negative number because a positive times a negative is a negative. And when I multiply these numbers, I get, let's see, 6 times 4.5. That'll give me 27. And now I have to make my graph again. I will put negative 27 down here. And I will put a circle because there is no line under it. And since 27 is bigger than m is smaller than this, that means all the numbers that are smaller. An easy way to see where the arrow goes, I can bring m to this side, right? This is equal to m on this side, and then I have to turn the symbol in the other direction, right? And put negative 27 over here. As you can see, now the arrow points in this direction. Just like I told you, put the variable in front, and that will help you decide where the arrow goes, because you follow this arrow. Number 31 says b is being divided by negative 2.5, which means I will have to multiply it to negative 2.5 over 1. Well, the negatives cancel out, but remember, whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other. So over here, I'm going to be multiplying this to negative 2.5 over 1. All right, now I got a negative times a negative. That's going to give me a positive number. And 2.5 times 2.4, well, let's see. 2.5 times 2.4, that's going to give me 6. But remember, I multiplied by a negative number, so my symbol has to be turned in the other direction. So b is greater than 6. Or we could say that b, turn the symbol around the other direction, is greater than 6, right? When I bring my graph down here, I will simply put a 6 down here. I will put a, let's see, this is greater than sign. And then since the arrow is pointing this direction, it must be all of the numbers in this direction. All right, next it says your friend solves the inequality. Is your friend correct? Explain the reasoning. Well, I'm doing number 33. He says that negative 3m is greater than or equal to 9. So he's going to add 3m. That is totally incorrect because negative 3 is being multiplied. I don't do addition because addition is not the opposite of multiplication. So let's do the correct way here. Negative 3m is greater than or equal to 9. That's what he's got here. I'm going to divide this by negative 3. Whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. All right. Now I see that my negative divided by negative is a positive. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and then I have a positive m left over. So I'll just erase this, showing I have a positive m. But remember, whatever I divide from one side, I divide from the other. Now I have 9 divided by negative 3. A positive divided by negative is going to give me a negative number. 9 divided by 3 is 3. But remember, I divided by a negative number, so I have to remember to turn my symbol in the other direction. All right, so your friend solves the inequality. Is your friend correct? Heck no, my friend is way off. No. And there's my work over here. All right, let's go down to number 35. This says writing and solving inequality. Write the word sentence as an inequality, then solve it. 35 says the number p divided by 7. So I've got p, I'm dividing it by 7, is less than, this means a less than, -3. All right, when I solve this, I have to get 7 by itself, or excuse me, p by itself. So I'm going to multiply it to 7 over 1. That way my 7's cancel out, and I have p all by itself. But whatever I multiply to one side, I multiply to the other side. And -3 times 7, well, that's -21. I didn't divide or multiply by negative numbers, so my symbol stays the same. It doesn't say to graph it, so my answer would be p is less than -21. All right, next is number 37 for me, the product of -2 and a number, x. Well, product means multiplying, so this is going to be -2 times x is greater than symbol, 30. Well, to solve this, I'm going to have to go ahead and divide by -2, which means I'll divide by -2 here. Well, now this is going to be x, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 2 divided by 2 is 1, so I have 1x. And since I went ahead and divided by a negative number, let me go back here to remind everybody, we did divide by a negative number here, right? We're going to have to turn our symbol around, and 30 divided by -2, that's going to be -15. And so there's no graphing here. Sorry, I almost thought I'd have to graph. Let's go to number 39. The cryotherapy chamber uses extreme cold to reduce muscle soreness. A chamber is currently 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature in the chamber is dropping 2.5 degrees Fahrenheit every second. Write and solve an inequality that represents the number of seconds that can pass for the temperature to drop below -20 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so if I'm saying that I'm going 2.5 and I'm dropping, it says, so that's a -2.5 every second. I'll put S for seconds. And remember, I need to get, it says, write and solve an inequality that represents the number of seconds that can pass for the temperature to drop below, so I need to be, is going to be less than -20. To solve this, I'll divide by -2.5. Whatever I divide from one side, I'll divide from the other. Well, now I'm going to take, let's see here. Well, I know a negative divided by a negative is positive, and 20 divided by 2.5. I think that's going to give me an 8. Oh, good, 8. So that means I'm going to have S over here, and because I divided by a negative number, I have to turn my symbol around, and that's going to give me 8. Right? A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 20 divided by 2.5 is 8. All right, doesn't say to graph anything, right? So I'll go to number 40. Hey, 40 is yours to do, which means I'm done. Oh, I'm so happy. I will see you in class for grading, and good luck with the rest of them. Have a great night.